What is good, team? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a couple of days since our last video. Some updates here for us on the Gold Coast in Australia. We've had a massive sort of cyclone situation happen, so weather's been absolutely crazy. Thankfully, we didn't lose power, but gyms were closed, shopping centers were closed, the whole state was basically shut down. So we kind of just been like at home, working, doing steps where we can. But I think in terms of training, like it actually worked out, to our advantage in the sense that we were supposed to run a deload this week anyway. So for the 3 or 4 days that the gyms were shut, we just ended up taking off training, which was nice. But it's been absolutely torrential rain. Wind's been crazy, so getting in steps has been difficult. They shut the gym in our building, so we couldn't walk on the treadmill. So we've kind of been like walking in the rain. We found a couple of random gyms that were open, walked on treadmills, did all that fun stuff. But we're out the backside of it now. Last day of deload, which coincided with some high days as well, which is certainly nice to enjoy a little bit of extra food and just be able to relax. On my deloads, I've talked about this a million times, I typically just love taking the time off training. So it took like 3 days out of the gym, had a sleep where I would usually train, a little bit more carbohydrates, which certainly helps recovery, which is a great thing. So certainly coming out the back of this deload diet break a little fresher, with today being the last high day, last day off training, back in tomorrow for a hard leg session. So I'll be nice and fueled for that leg session, which is very exciting. But all I wanted to do in today's video is basically give you guys a bit of an update in terms of where we are for prep and an overview of what I'm doing in terms of my last high day. So what my high days look like in terms of food intake, because I think that's probably one of the biggest questions I get is like, what do you eat? How many calories do you eat? What does your macro split look like? What do your meals look like? So I thought rather than me telling everyone on an individual basis, I'll show you guys in today's video. But we're just getting breakfast ready, so I'll show you guys how that looks, and then we'll rip into today's video as well with some updates in terms of where we are for shows. Into meal one, and as a bodybuilder, you kind of need to be a creature of habit, especially when you figure out ways to eat that optimize your training, I guess, performance, your energy, your mood, your digestion, all those kind of fun things. So for me, you guys have seen in plenty of other full day of eating videos, my breakfast, and it's always just been an egg white omelet with some fruit, mainly because that's kind of how I like to set up my day, where I have a protein-rich meal first thing in the morning, after some fasted activity. So I usually get most of my steps done first thing in the morning. But then all I do simply on those high days is just add back in carbohydrates. So you'll notice with all my meals, they're all very much the same throughout the entire, off season and comp prep season, whereby I just increase the amount of carbohydrates in those meals, and I'll just simply add carbohydrates or add more carbohydrates to specific meals. So for this one, like today being an example of a high day, I've got 500 grams of carbs, I've got 5 meals. So I'm essentially trying to get in 100 grams of carbs thereabouts per meal. Generally, I'll bias a little more carbs to the pre, intra, post-workout space, so they might be close to like 120 or something like that, and these other meals might be 60, 70, 80, somewhere in that range. So this one, all I've done is egg white omelet with veggies and fruit, stays the same, and I've just added in 2 English muffins, so I think it brings the total to this meal around about like 60 grams of carbs, but I'll throw the calories and macros up on the screen so you guys can see that one. But again, very straightforward, very simple, nothing crazy out of the ordinary that I wouldn't normally do. It's just this simple addition of carbohydrates, and I can't get that point across enough to anyone out there who's dieting or competing or doing anything like that, is like, don't overcomplicate it. Don't try and like ram in a bunch of random foods that you haven't eaten before just because you've got the extra calories to do so. I think it really takes like a lot of mental fortitude, so to speak, to be able to kind of restrict yourself in the sense that you just want to figure out foods that digest well, that give you good training performance, that make you feel good obviously and digest well, and just stick with those things. So for me, this has been a bit of an exploratory journey where we figured out some things that maybe didn't work as well, or things that upset my stomach. So it's kind of been a case of like trial and error, add things, see how it works, remove it if needed, and this has been pretty perfect for me. So a little bit of sort of bread with my breakfast meal has been bang on, digestion's been perfect, so we roll with it. But that's meal one. I'll jump in, eat this, I'll see you guys maybe for meal two. I think we're gonna prep some food for the day, so we'll see how that looks. But again, nothing crazy. It's gonna be some protein, some rice, and some vegetables and fruit. But we'll see you guys for meal prep and meals 2 through 5 later on the day. So breakfast is done. Just spent a little bit of time in the kitchen getting some meals ready for the week. Basically what I like to do, especially earlier in the week or even on the weekends, is just prep for the kind of week ahead with my more so protein intake. So generally what I'll do is like organize my pre-workout meal for the week, which is basically just chicken and rice and fruit every day. So I'll generally cook all the chicken in advance. I'll just bake it in the oven and then either freeze it in individual bags or pop it in the fridge for the week and just dish it out as I needed. And we actually did get some turkey breast mince, which is actually really hard to get in Australia. So it's super lean turkey breast mince, pretty similar macros to just like chicken breast, but you can make it into some nice, burgers or rissoles and bake it or pan fry. It's delicious. So we ended up doing a few of those as well. I think we did like 10. So it's like 2 per meal, 200 grams of protein, 200 grams of meat, which is our protein source for that meal. Gabby and I would generally have 2 of those for dinners or lunches. So we just kind of like to have a lot of protein on hand, prepped, ready to go, which is a great time saving strategy, especially for people out there who struggle with time management when it comes to like meal prepping and, they can't find the time to kind of get in shape and make the right choices with food. I think meal prep is a no-brainer, even if it is just simply just prepping your protein sources, and then you can just add in carbs as needed, add in fats as needed. So for these meals, I'll just generally either add some fruit, some salad, some vegetables, or some rice, and just kind of spread those out the day, either pre-workout or dinner or something like that, to make life super easy. But anyway, that's meal prep done for the day, and I'll show you guys what my pre-workout meal looks like, or typical pre-workout meal, because today I'm not training, so it'll just be my normal meal anyway. But basically just want to give you guys some updates in terms of where we are, a bit of a contest prep update. I might even throw a little physique update on the screen as an overlay for this video. But basically we are in the 5-week out mark now, so it's like down to the pointy end. We did hit some new lows earlier in the week or last week, so it was the last like sort of push in that low calorie phase where training volume was really coming to a to the highest point. Calories were at the lowest point. So again, we haven't really manipulated calories too much because we did a lot of the fat loss work early on. So the lowest my calories have gotten has been around 2,500. We were at 2,750 last week, and weight was still coming down about a kilo a week. So I think we hit a new low at like 92.5 or something like that. After 3 days of refeeding, we're up about a kilo, so 93.5 as of this morning, and I anticipate it to be pretty similar tomorrow as well, because we're basically just topping up glycogen stores, finding that point at which we kind of almost spill. So kind of finding a point that like, hey, we maximize glycogen uptake, and maybe it improved the look, or maybe it made the look worse, and we're kind of just waiting to see what that looks like after day 3. So typically for me, 2 to 3 days of loading is nice, 500 grams of carbs per day, so 1,500 grams of carbs across 3 days. And then generally what I find is like my digestion gets a bit funky. I tend to look a little bit worse after the refeed days. So we like to have at least a day or 2, preferably after those high days, to really just let a lot of that fatigue wash off and a lot of that, bounce back in insulin that you do get, which kind of brings about some water retention and things like that. So typically for me, it's like 2 days after refeed, I look good. But we are, like I said, 5 weeks out from the first show, which is the Sydney state titles, or New South Wales state titles in Sydney. So very excited to get down to that show. Sydney was my hometown. I grew up there my whole life. So I'm excited to get back there. All of my clients are there, or majority of my clients are there, and a lot of people that I just grew up with and worked with around the area. So it's going to be an awesome show. So if you are in Sydney, April 13th, come out and check the show out. I might leave the link for the tickets below at the University of New South Wales for the IFBB Pro Qualifier state titles. I think I'll be on stage maybe like 11 a.m., 12 p.m., something like that. And then we've got a 2-week gap before we head off to Melbourne. So then we're down to Melbourne for the Pro Qualifier, which is where I'll be battling it out for my pro card in the Classic Physique division, IFBB Pro League here in Australia. And then the plan is from there, we've got some big travel plans coming up. So we're basically like, typical Kyle fashion. We always do crazy shit when it comes to prep. Like we moved to the Gold Coast a week before my last show. And now 2 years later, I took last year off, obviously, to make some improvements. 2 years later, I'm competing again, and we're moving 2 weeks before my next show. So we're down to Sydney for that show, obviously. Then we're in Melbourne for a week. And then we basically just packed up our whole life, and we're going to do the traveling bodybuilder digital nomad life. Gabby and I both did get our British passports, or I got mine, we're waiting for hers. So we are officially British citizens, which is exciting. So the plan is to get over there, depending on the outcome here in Australia. It's either go over to the UK and throughout Europe and potentially look for some pro qualifying shows. If I don't get the card here, preferably I'd like to get the card here, and then I would either go to Europe and compete as a pro, or just take the necessary time off and make some improvements there, and then look to compete all around the UK and Europe, because that's kind of where all the pro shows are. And then potentially the US as well. So lots of exciting things coming up for us in 2025 and moving into 2026 as we start planning for the next 12 months in advance. So excited to take you guys along with me. That is pretty much us for this morning's wrap up. I'm going to jump in and do some work. I'll show you guys what meal 2 looks like when we get stuck in, and then I'll show you what those later meals look like during the day. And I'll give you the full macro calorie breakdown for each meal as we go along as well, at around 3,500 calories. What is good? What is good? We're back in the kitchen for meal 2. So meal 1, you guys saw, we prepped a bunch of food for the week. So all of our protein done for most of the week. And I'm just gonna have some of that because we've got it all ready to rock. So like I said before, nothing crazy. A bit of pre-planning goes a long way, especially if you're time poor and you've got lots of shit that you need to do during the week, which we kind of do this week. So I basically just pre-cooked my rice this morning, and I'm just gonna dish that up, and then I've got my chicken that I've already made, which actually turned out really nice. I'm very happy with that. I ended up just baking it in the oven for like 40 minutes, and it turned out to be like really delicious, like pulled chicken. So I shredded it all and it's super succulent and moist. Gross to say. But anyway, steamed rice. If you don't have a rice cooker, get one. It is the simplest and easiest way to make rice perfect every time. No mucking around. I just put it on in the morning. I let it sit here and get warm while I'm doing some work and stuff like that. And then I can just dish it up when I'm ready to rock and roll. But that is 100 grams of uncooked rice. So probably one of the biggest questions I always get around food prep is like, do you weigh it cooked or raw? And I always weigh it raw, so I know exactly how much I need to buy for the week, how much I need to prepare in advance if I'm making it. And then if I'm gonna have like bulk prep in advance, I'll generally weigh it cooked as well, so I know how much is, you know, divided by how many meals I need. So if I was to cook like 5 portions of rice, I can just weigh it out cooked as well, and then I can just divide that by 5 if I want to break it up into specific meals. But very, very easy. So rice is done. I'm gonna check this chicken out. Look at that. Super delicious. So again, I did this raw and then I've weighed it cooked as well, so I know how much I need for each meal because it was 5 portions. But I basically just shredded it up, especially like during contest prep, eating foods that are like smaller, that take you longer to eat, I think is certainly advantageous. So I just shred it up and it feels like I'm eating more food, which is definitely a good thing. So that is chicken done. And I'll just pop that back in the fridge and I'll just have that for the next 4 lunches pretty much. So I don't have to think about it. It's already ready, done for the week. I don't have to worry about anything else. Life is good. The last thing I do with all my meals, and this is particularly important, especially on contest prep, is management of sodium and potassium intake. So basically what I do is I measure all my sodium potassium intake for the day, and it's generally around like a 1-to-1 ratio. So generally between 4,000 and 5,000 milligrams of sodium potassium per day. So for me, I just rotate salt sources because they're all going to contain different like elemental basically varieties. So some are higher in magnesium, some are higher in sodium, potassium. So I use iodized salt. So iodized salt, I do 1 gram, which is 3 cracks. And I've measured this. So I go 1, 2, 3. That's my 1 gram of iodized salt. So again, mainly for like thyroid, iodine-rich salt is really, really important. So we want to basically maintain an adequate iodine balance in the diet. Then I go in with 1 gram of the Diet Right light salt, which is 50% sodium, 50% potassium. So again, I measure this out and I do 1 gram, which is like one of these little half teaspoon measurements. And I just bang that on top. And that is my sodium potassium. And I do that every single day on all of my meals. I measure it out, so that I know when it comes time for show and we want to manipulate anything, I can just simply adjust that up or down. Lastly, on this meal, I put some fruit. So some people probably think this is like a random combo, but don't knock it till you've tried it. Just some pineapple and some rice and some chicken. So super straightforward. I got some carbs, both from the fruit and the rice. I've got some plain cooked chicken. So again, really low fat, high carb, easy to digest. Pineapple, I think, is a really great addition to most meals as well because it does help improve digestion, really high digestive enzyme content. I believe it's bromelain. So again, if you do have digestive issues, you want to watch what types of fruits and vegetables you're eating. I think pineapple is a really great one for anyone that has like, you know, for me, I'm kind of a little bit sensitive. I kind of have like some FODMAP shit going on. So pineapple for me has been a game changer. I just pop that in with this meal. It helps increase the digestion, the absorption of that meal. I don't get bloated. I don't get any gas or anything like that. So life is good. But that is us for meal 2, rockin' and rollin', which would normally be my pre-workout meal. Oh my God, this pineapple. Cutting it up like a psychopath to make it small. There it is. Pineapple, chicken, rice, and I'll probably put some cinnamon on that as well. Make it extra weird. All right, what is good, guys? We are back in the kitchen for meal 3, which is typically my post-workout meal, but like I said, today we are on rest day, so just keeping the same meal structure, meal frequency, just no training. And if you are a regular on the channel, you know that it's the post-workout cream of rice bowl. If you are new to the channel, I will introduce you to my cream of rice post-workout bowl, which I've posted on here a million times just in terms of the recipe and how I make it. And I've changed it a million times as well, so I'll probably do an updated one soon anyway. But basically for me, post-workout cream of rice is a staple. I took it out, I hated my life, I put it back in, life is good again, and I'm happy to, you know, skimp on food elsewhere throughout the day in order to kind of bank up or have enough calories for that meal, just because it brings me so much enjoyment. Plus, it's also really, really good on my stomach. So for like a post-workout meal, you want something that's readily digestible in terms of carbohydrate and protein. This just having like 45 grams of whey protein isolate, 100 grams of rice flour, and then I put a bunch of fruit and berries and stuff on there just for like antioxidant profile, some extra carbohydrates. and just extra deliciousness. So I'll show you how this looks. I've made it in advance, and then I've got a little trick now that I borrowed from Mr. Wesley Visser's, the protein drip on top. Because I've kind of pulled out like all artificial sweeteners and sauces and shit like that I was kind of putting on, I was finding a lot of them were just messing up my digestion a little bit. So literally just opted for like plain rice flour with some protein, and then I make like a little whey drip on top. So I did like a peanut butter, cream of rice base, and then I do like a chocolate protein sauce on top with my fruit and some dark chocolate and some berries and dates, banana, which is delicious, but I'll show you how it looks. So basically what I do is I make it in advance. So that's kind of how it looks. It's already set up, ready to rock and roll. And I put it in the freezer for a couple of minutes just to let it cool down because it does get quite hot. And then I make the little whey drip. So I just do like some whey protein, a bit of water, and then I just pop that in the freezer as well, just so it thickens up. And then literally this just acts as like my sauce because I'm not having any sauce or syrups on any of my meals. So, you know, we make do with what we've got. Plus it allows me to hit my protein target as well. But I'll show you what this looks like when we put it on top. Look at that. Boom. And that is it. Post-workout cream of rice with some whey drip. What do we got? Chocolate peanut butter base with chocolate on top. All right, we are back in the kitchen for meal 4, which is my dinner meal. What are we now? Like just after 6 p.m. I typically find on these higher days, I struggle to get my meals in. Just being on lower food generally for the last few months, the high days actually rocked me a little bit. So it's kind of a bit of a struggle to get it in, which sounds so terrible, like eating 3,500 calories. My last build phase, I think I got up to close to like 5,000. So it's funny. Obviously you know, your stomach shrinks the longer you diet as well. So it does feel like a lot of food. But anyway, we're gonna try and get it in so I don't stay up late and eat my last meal too late, too close to bed. I've spoken about this heaps again with like meal timing, meal frequency, and the things that we do on prep, just kind of keeping things really static. The one thing that we do sort of rotate is protein sources at our dinner meals. So this week, well actually tonight we've got eye fillet steak, so some beautiful lean eye fillet steak, and I do pride myself on my ability to cook a good steak. So one thing that we do enjoy in prep is some nice steak and cook it well because it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. But steak for me, steak for Gabby. We've got some salad, a couple of little vegetables here. I've got some rice because this is obviously my last high day, so putting rice with this meal. And that's pretty much it, nothing crazy. Like we did actually get some turkey as well this week. I've made some turkey burgers, so we're just gonna rotate between like turkey, chicken, eye fillet, but you'll notice that all of them are lean cuts of meat because my fats are pretty low and I generally like to keep it that way to maximize carbohydrates, and then I'll just add fats if I need it. So things like almond butter, dark chocolate, avocado, and a couple of whole eggs in my breakfast. But I'll show you guys what this looks like once it's done. We've got 100 grams of raw weight rice, I've got 160 grams of eye fillet steak, and then probably about 150 grams of mixed salad leaves, which is bugger all calories, so we're not going to worry about that too much. But anyway, that's us done for meal 4, and we've got 1 meal left, which is basically just a rinse and repeat of my post-workout meal, my meal 3. I've just been having cream of rice before bed because again, super nice, super easy to digest, and I really enjoy it. So I'll show you guys how this one looks, and I'll show you the full calories and macros for this meal, and then for the next one, and the full day calorie and macros so you can see exactly what it looks like and how you can set it up for your diet. The moment of truth. Wow, come on. Come on, that's perfect. The trick is to cut it up into small bite-sized pieces so it feels like you're getting more food. And that is meal 4, guys. Eye fillet, white rice, and salad. All right, team, we are back in the kitchen for meal 5, my pre-bed meal, which I said to you guys is exactly the same as my post-workout meal, just because it's been digesting super nice, and I'm just keeping things in my diet plan that sit well, that digest well, don't cause me too many issues. So literally the same as before, my cream of rice bowl, and all I've done this time is just, I do some different toppings. So I'll put like some different fruit, I'll put some different toppings, I'll put a different flavored protein on top as my protein sludge or my whey drip, and I'll put some dates, some fruit, and all the other bits and pieces. So nothing overly exciting for this meal, just rinse and repeat, keeping it very, very simple, but it brings our total calories to about 3,450 for the day, around 500 grams of carbs, 250, 260 grams of protein, and around 50 grams of fat. So I'll show you the full calorie macro breakdown for this meal for the entire day, and I think that'll wrap up today's video. We're back in the gym tomorrow for lower body, which is a new program. So I'll show you guys exactly what we're doing tomorrow. But as always, guys, if you are enjoying the videos, if you are getting value from them at all, it would mean the world to me if you like, comment, share, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see you guys tomorrow for legs.